All right, today we're going to unpack a really fascinating concept called divine favor. It comes from a book that tries to answer a question I think pretty much all of us have asked at some point.
I mean, have you ever seen this happen? Someone you know, or maybe a public figure, just gets this incredible, totally unexplainable break in life. It just seems to come out of nowhere, right? You're left wondering, was that just sheer luck? A one in a million shot? Or is there something else going on? Well, the book we're looking at today offers a really specific spiritual framework to try and make sense of it all.
So, the source for today's deep dive is the book Divine Favor. Our goal here is pretty simple. We're going to break down the key ideas from inside this book to see how it explains these wild, extraordinary moments.
Okay, so first things first, let's get a definition on the table. What does this book actually mean when it talks about divine favor?
Right, so according to this book, we're not talking about just a vague, good vibe or feeling lucky. No, it's described as a specific endowment from God. And look at what it's supposed to do. We're talking about real-world results, influence with important people, access to places and things you'd normally be locked out of, and opportunities that they kind of defy all logic.
Now, that's all a bit abstract, right? So to make it concrete, the book really zeroes in on one particular story to illustrate the whole idea. It's the story of a guy named Nehemiah. Now, his job title was royal cupbearer, basically a trusted servant to the super-powerful Persian king. But Nehemiah had this absolutely massive, seemingly impossible mission on his heart.
And here's what's so key according to the book. It's what Nehemiah does before he makes his big move. He doesn't just cross his fingers and hope for the best. No, the book points to this very specific prayer where he asks God to grant him mercy or favor in the sight of the king. So the argument is he's actively praying for this divine favor before he even opens his mouth.
And wow, was his move bold. I mean, let's just walk through how insane this was. Step 1. He, a servant, asks the most powerful man in the world for a leave of absence to go rebuild the walls of an enemy city. That alone is just shocking. But he's not done. He then asks for official letters to guarantee his safe passage. And for the grand finale, get this. He asks for the timber to be supplied from the king's own personal forest. I mean, this is just an unbelievably audacious series of requests.
And the crazy part? The king says yes to all of it. The book points right here to Nehemiah's own words as the absolute core of this idea. Nehemiah doesn't say, wow, I'm a great negotiator, or man, the king must have been in a good mood. Nope. He says the king granted his requests according to the good hand of my God upon me. This is what the book holds up as the poster child for divine favor in action.
Okay, so if that's what it is, what does it actually do? What are the tangible effects of this favor in someone's life? Well, the book breaks that down for us.
It's pretty straightforward. According to the book, favor creates influence. Think about it. Nehemiah went from cupbearer to having the king's full attention. It grants access. He got the letters and the keys to the king's forest, basically. It brings these unusual opportunities and leads to exaltation or promotion. I mean, he was promoted from a servant to the governor of this massive construction project. And finally, the book says it can turn mourning into joy. In this case, taking a ruined, broken-down city and turning it into a place of life and celebration.
Okay, this leads us to what is probably the biggest question of all, right? Is this whole thing just random, a cosmic lottery? Or, as the book argues, are there specific reasons or conditions for why someone gets it?
Yeah, the book comes down hard on this one. It is not random. It lays out 3 main causes. The first, and this is the big one, is that favor is connected to a divine assignment or purpose. Second, it's tied to walking in righteousness. And third, it's linked to pursuing wisdom. So let's really dig into that first point, the whole assignment thing.
This is probably the central pillar of the book's argument. It's all about purpose. The idea is that this divine favor isn't for your own personal comfort or gain, it's a tool given to accomplish a specific mission. Nehemiah's mission, rebuild the wall. Joseph's, save a nation from famine. Esther's, stop a genocide. The book's claim is that in each of these stories, the moment these individuals stepped into that massive God-given purpose, that's when the favor was unlocked to make it happen.
All right, but it doesn't stop there. What happens after you get it? The book is really clear on this. Receiving favor is only half the battle. The other, arguably harder half, is what it calls stewarding it, managing it the right way. And that brings us to our last part.
And this slide just lays out the stakes perfectly. You've got your good stewards on one side, guys like Joseph and Nehemiah. The book says they stayed humble, they used their new power for the right reasons, and they fulfilled their mission. But then you have the poor stewards, people like King Saul and Solomon, who were given so much favor, but as the book tells it, they completely wasted it through disobedience and bad choices. The takeaway is pretty stark. This isn't a permanent gift. It can be lost.
So how do you avoid squandering it? The book actually gives a very practical checklist for what good stewardship looks like. A lot of it comes down to character, being humble enough to give credit where it's due, being generous with what you've received, having the integrity not to abuse it. But it's also about looking ahead. You've got to keep growing, protect what you've been given, and think about passing that legacy on to the next generation.
And really, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. When you strip it all away, the central message of this book is that those incredible, life-changing breaks we see, they're not just random luck. They're a purpose-driven gift, tied directly to a specific assignment, and they come with a huge responsibility to handle them well.
So we want to leave you with this question to chew on. Let's just step back from the specific theology for a second. What if you adopted that core mindset? What if you started to see big opportunities not as random luck, but as purpose-driven moments? How would that change the way you approach your life, your work, your goals? It's a powerful idea to think about. Thanks for joining us.